Hi, I'm Al Baldessau, your state representative, and my co-host is,
Representative Jeanine Nodder. I work with Al.
and we're Who's Looking Out for You. Once again, it's an honor for us to get together and talk and give a legislative update here. And I know prior to the show, we had a special guest. You want to talk about that?
Well, we had a couple of guests that didn't work out. Jim Rubens was supposed to be here this week, and there must have been a miscommunication somewhere, or maybe he went to a different studio. I don't know what happened. We'll find out and we'll get him back. And then Roger Filio of Londonderry
yes.
was here, and we had some technical difficulties and ran out of time before we could start the show.
Well, I have to give my compliments to the studio here. You know, Jerry Connor, volunteer, and Erin, and Drew there, and Al Sitek on the wonderful job they did to get the communications back up.
Right.
So here we are back on the show. And anyways,
well, we have enough. We have a lot to talk about, even without a guest. There's so much that happened this past week up in Concord, and I wish I could say it was good.
A lot of spending.
A lot of spending, a lot of taxes going up, a lot of freedoms taken away. It's not good. Well, the tanning bill didn't go through.
Well, you brought up the tanning bill. Let's talk a little bit real quick
All
on
right.
the tanning bill there, because that was what, on the 18, you need the doctor's note.
Under 18, you need a doctor's note, because currently it's going to stay this way, unless the Senate does something with it. It's going to the Senate
Well,
now.
actually, we killed the tanning bill there. We
Oh, that's right. That's right. I was thinking. Okay.
Yeah, that was on
You're right.
the other way. There was
All
so
right.
many that happened.
So let me back up. Currently, if you're under the age of 18, you need a parental notification or parental consent
Doctor.
to go to a tanning salon. I understand the reasons why this bill was drafted. There are dangers if you overuse a tanning. You could possibly get skin cancer, and they were looking out for the kids. But whose job is it to do the parenting? The states or the parents? I believe it's the parents. So I spoke out on this bill. I spoke at the hearing, and I spoke on the House floor. I said, oh, well, are we going to draft a bill to ban children from going out in the sunshine? And then are we going to mandate vitamin D supplements?
Right. Well, let me ask you something. Of course, my friends on the left were determined and wanted this passed.
Yes, they did, and they almost got it.
But what I didn't understand is they want you to have a doctor's note to get a tan if you're
Right.
under 18.
Another bill, another
But
doctor
yet,
bill.
You don't need a note to go get an abortion.
Right, and Steve Valancourt of Manchester, I think he won the battle because he went up and said, so let me get this straight. A girl can get an abortion, but she can't get a tan?
Or a
Think about it.
That's right, ear piercing or anything like that, or stomach piercing without a parental note. I
Right.
mean, it's out of control. Well, if Jeanine and I both support moms and dads running their families, so I'm glad we were able to kill that. We kind of
Right.
called them out, along with the help of Representative Valancourt from Manchester.
I got a letter from a girl in my town, Merrimack, who said she had melanoma, and I think she believes she got it from tanning. I said, well, I wrote her back, and I said, I believe in that parents should have the control, not the state, but education is important. So will you come on my show and talk to me about the dangers of going out in the sun? But I didn't hear back from her.
I think it's time for people to start looking at voting records, because I hate to say it, if you have a state representative that voted for that bill, that's telling you, as sitting at home, that that representative thinks they know better than moms and dads, that they should be the mom and dad of your children. I was so disgusted when I heard some of the speakers that get up in support of that.
Right.
But yet those are the ones that spoke against abortion, or that spoke against the, what they call
Spoke
the
against
fetal
homicide, right.
Let's go right into
They're
that fetal
horrible.
homicide.
All right,
That was another
I was
one.
a co-sponsor. It was supposed to be Griffin's Law. Okay, we have had two cases that I know off the top of my head where there was an accident, a car accident, and the baby died. In one case, this was December, this former Fortune 500 executive wanted to kill himself. I don't remember the man's name now. He drove at a high speed, crossed the median on 189, coming back from Vermont. Is that the right highway?
Yes, I think so.
He hit this car, shaved off the top of the car. The occupants in it died. They were in their 20s, two people. I don't have their names written down. She was 8 months pregnant, and the baby died. So He's got, arrested for 2 murders, but not 3. And it should have been 3. That baby was 1. This has nothing to do with abortion. And in my speech on the floor, I talked about California, Lacey Peterson. She was killed by her husband, Scott Peterson. He went to jail for double homicide, for killing Lacey, his wife, and their child, who she was pregnant. He dumped them into the San Francisco Bay. 3 months later, they washed up. I didn't go into the details, the gory details.
38 states have this law, right, or something that came up on the floor?
I think that was the number. They have some sort of fetal homicide. So what they did, because they did not want this bill to pass. And then Griffin. Let's talk about baby Griffin. Our colleague, Representative Leon Rideout, his daughter was in a car accident. She was pregnant. I think she may have been 7 months pregnant.
Right.
The baby died. All right. Leon's family was up in the gallery while they were being salted on the House floor.
What a disgrace that was. I couldn't believe the Democrats did that.
Oh yes, this amendment came forth to change it. Like, well, the mother has to die, and then there'll be a slight penalty. And I said after I talked about Lacey Peterson, I said this is not going to change the abortion laws in New Hampshire. What are they afraid of? California is the most liberal state, one of the most liberal states in the country. They have a fetal homicide law, and they still have abortion, and it's prevalent.
Because the liberals do not want that word fetus
They don't.
to be
They
in the
will
law,
not
that we will
acknowledge. So
recognize.
I guess if you're Democrat and you're pregnant, or I'm sorry, and some Democrats are pro-life, but if what are they carrying? They're pregnant. What are they carrying?
I just don't
if it's not a
understand
baby?
why they did not support that bill, because that bill was a woman's bill that protected mothers, women that chose to carry. And in many cases, we've even heard talking about in domestic violence where the boyfriend or whoever, the guy kicks the woman in the stomach to try to kill her so she wouldn't have the baby, so he wouldn't have to pay support, and yet it's just a simple assault charge. It's not murder if they kill the fetus. I mean, it's a disgrace here. We try to fix it, and
And that same day, we passed a bill to include pets under the domestic violence statute.
right.
So we care about the animals.
But not the kids,
right.
not the babies there with a heartbeat. It's a shame.
And
you
when I
know.
was doing my research for my part of the floor debate, I need to take a break. There was just 2 after reading about Lacey Peterson and these deaths and accidents. I went to the gym, go to Planet Fitness, so I'm jogging along, and I always watch the History Channel when I'm jogging. But so I looked up at Chumley and Rick from Pawn Stars, and I'm hearing something else. So I turned, and I was on the TV next to it. It was one of those house flipper shows. And this woman, this house flipper, was going to spend all this money to move the little cats that were buried in the yard of this house. It was a foreclosure, so the previous owners had these little kitty cats buried in the yard, and she just couldn't put a patio over. So, okay, I love animals too. I have sponsored pet legislation.
That's right.
I love animals, but humans have dominions over the animals, and humans should be more important than little kitty cats that were buried.
Well,
so she exhumed them. Broke the bank to
I'm
exhume
tell you,
kitty
I
cats.
actually, my last 2 weeks has probably been one of the worst I've had in my 8 years up there. I didn't even leave my room yesterday. Yesterday was my first break.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I've been on the go every day, and on the weekends we had different other stuff going on. And I finally sat back and just tried to reminisce on what went wrong. And I mean, look at for instance, the paint. Let's talk about paint.
Okay.
People paint their houses every day. And they wanted to put a tax. What was it?
They took it off consent. I have it here. I have the calendar. They didn't take it off consent.
It was supposed to have been killed, the bill.
They took it off the
That's right.
table.
It was tabled a while ago because they said, we're going to come up with another amendment and fix this. How can you fix a tax? And how can we compromise on a tax?
I can't find it.
Yeah, well, anyways,
it was the week
It
before.
just popped in my head. It was 75 cents a gallon of paint tax. Now, it was on the table. They voted to take it off the table. Now, this is a tax that should have went to Ways and Means, and then it just was in finance. The revenue, the amendment, they said, the committee supported it. Well, when we called them out on it on the floor, none of the Republicans knew anything about this amendment and voted for it.
Yep.
Now, this amendment by our Constitution, by our House rules, it should have had a public hearing because it's a tax.
Right.
They didn't do that.
No public hearing. Did they add this to another bill?
No, no, it was
That was another
on
bill.
it was original bill that was, came out of committee, but there was no talk about tax and other stuff there through Ways and Means, through the revenue people and everything else. But anyways, make a long story short, they passed it. And it
Right.
was 75 cents a gallon tax. And this money is gonna go to a nonprofit group who's gonna collect this paint that we have sitting in our homes, and they're going to be probably paying their CEOs and everyone else hundreds of thousands of dollars of the taxpayers' money. Now, if you're a small business painting homes,
Right.
you may buy 20, 30 gallon,
This is going
5-gallon
to
can.
hurt the
I think the max on a
painters.
5-gallon is $1 or 78 or somewhere around there. Don't quote me on the numbers. I don't have the bill in front of me, but it was close to that. That's a shame.
Right. Well, right now, all you have to do is pop the lid and let it dry, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can throw it away. I had several cans of paint, and I talked to my trash man. I said, you know, how can I get rid of this paint? He goes, just take the lid off. It took a long time for it to dry, but I lined it up in the garage, and eventually it did.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was able to throw
And
it
that's
away.
all you have to do.
Right. So,
Right. Matter of fact, our recycling place here in Londonderry, you can turn that in, and we pay them to dispose of it. And there, it's a win-win for the town and for the people that have the paint at their house. And since that bill is going to the Senate now, the Senate passed the bill. Actually, a couple of them. One's going to be coming to us soon, and that's the gas tax. But we'll get to that in
Oh.
a minute.
well,
Medicaid expansion.
right. Wait, one more thing on the
Oh,
paint
was there
bill.
something?
Yeah, one more thing on the paint bill. It's in the amendment. I saw it. I read it myself. That if companies, places that sell paint, don't comply with this, if they don't agree to take the paint, the old paint, they can't sell product.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because under the RICO law, that's against commerce, and laws on you can't stop that company from selling paint here. And there's going to be a lot of issues that are going to come up or challenges in the court.
So this is not good.
No,
But I
this is
think
not.
the
This is
worst thing that's
unconstitutional
happened to
also.
our pocketbooks is Medicaid expansion.
Right. Now, of course, I was glad for Senator Sharon Carson here in Londonderry, who voted against Medicaid expansion.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon, that's for sure. But anyways, a few other senators, Republicans, voted with the Democrats.
Yes.
Now it comes to the House. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden here we have Medicaid expansion. But what's the catch on this? Do you remember the catch on this? This was the compromise, and people aren't aware of what's going to go on. And I'll explain real quick. The catch is that there's a waiver that's needed, okay, for on the Medicaid expansion.
Right.
And if that waiver don't go through, what's going to happen is that in December of 2015, Medicaid expansion goes away. Now, a lot of us don't think this waiver is going to be passed, okay? And the Executive Council yesterday signed a contract with a company for 1.2 or 1.7, somewhere around there, $1 million to help us set up Medicaid expansion. No three companies putting in bids or anything. The Democrats already had a company waiting with a contract, and they were the first, and they passed it 3-2, the Executive Council, to give that contract out. This is a disgrace.
It is.
This is a tax waiting to happen because we already know.
Income tax. Because how are they going to pay for it? Once you get all these people on Medicaid expansion, how are you going to take them off?
Were you at the leadership conference and stuff when they were talking about the budget in Washington, where there were 6 Democrats and the rest of the Republicans on the budget committee with Paul Ryan, who's the chair of that committee there. But anyways, they were talking about that they can't fund this. They can't keep it sustained, the Medicaid expansion. And they're going to have
It's like
to cut.
money is no option
Right.
in New Hampshire.
And they're talking about cutting that budget. So that means the taxpayers are going to pick up the tab on this. And not only that, the people that think they're getting a great deal, 2 parents working, maybe making $15,000, $16,000 a piece. I'm throwing out some numbers here. I think it's up to $32,000 per family. They have to sign over their houses.
Yes.
You
and
heard that on the floor, right?
Well,
I
what
brought that
happened
up.
to someone that we both know? They had to sign over their house.
That's right, and I brought that up because that's a law in 1965, I believe, and on the Medicaid Act, and whereas these people, hard-working people, it's not like Medicaid now. A lot of these people don't work. You just can't afford anything. We give you a hand up.
And
you
that person that we know, I'm just going to say his name just to add credence to it, Representative Dan Itza.
right?
He's been through all this. He spoke against it, and
He has a son in a wheelchair, that thousands
sweetest
of
little
dollars
boy.
in medical. I
So
met him.
soft.
I was
love
at his
him.
house a few times there, and it's costing him. He said like $300,000 a year in medical, and he signed over his house, signed over everything that he has. But I mean, it's a shame. Here we're forcing him on Medicaid, and he had insurance, which he had to, end up losing. So now he had to go to the Medicaid.
Well, sometimes I listen to Patriot Radio. It's on the XM, and I've been hearing all over the country. People are quitting their jobs so they can get Obamacare free with a subsidy. Why work? You can get it free and
That's
get
right.
money on top of it.
Well, it's the same thing because you can get.
But who pays?
welfare.
Somebody has to pay. And
you know,
what do you do when you
food
run out of
stamps.
people who are paying?
Since you're talking about paying, we're going to get back to Medicaid expansion, but there was a bill there on the food stamps on to stop using the taxpayers' money to buy alcohol and cigarettes. I could not believe it failed.
Of course it
The
did.
Democrats were determined not to do it. And then a representative Horrigan from where's he from? Dunbarton. I
Oh
think,
yeah, he sits next to Gidge
right
behind me,
yeah,
in front of you.
in front of me, right. But anyway, he get up and said, "Why are we mad? This is the taxpayers' money coming back to us because they're buying state alcohol."
I'm dead set against
I
that.
could not believe the mentality on that bill there. So there's another one. If you voted, for your taxpayers' money to
Oh.
be used for alcohol and cigarettes, then we got some problems here.
That reminds me, I made myself a note and we moved on. And then
We're going to go back to Medicaid expansion because that's a big one.
all right, we'll do that and then I'll talk about
Okay.
voting records.
Now, I foresee down the road on Medicaid expansion because right now it's at 100%. Okay? If we don't get the waivers, it goes away in December of 2015. We made promise, well, I shouldn't say we because I voted against it, you voted against it. The Democrats made promises to these people, moms with children, but what they didn't tell them that you may lose it in December 2015. They didn't tell them the truth there. They didn't tell the moms and dads you may lose your property, this or that. They just said, wow, we're the great saviors. We're giving you Medicaid. We're going to get you on the government rolls like in the social in the socialism.
It's socialism.
Right?
It is
I know
socialism.
you were talking about that earlier.
It is, yeah.
It's a shame.
Well, you had mentioned voting records and check voting records, and I remember hearing that, before I was involved in politics, I'd hear of voting records. I'm like, I didn't know how to check somebody's voting records. So we need to show people how. We don't have internet here, but if you start with the Google search, New Hampshire General Court, okay? New Hampshire General
Or
Court.
House of Representatives, and it comes up.
House of Representatives, okay, New Hampshire House of Representatives. You just look at it, study the page. There's a couple different ways to find your legislator. There's a House roster search. You can find my legislator. There's that option. And it brings up a screen, different areas. You click on your town, and it shows your representative. So this is Londonderry. There you have 7.
We have 7 reps. We have 6 of us
6
are
Republicans
and 1
Democrat. So 6 voted against Medicaid expansion, I
Yes, and
presume.
one voted
and
for.
1 voted
right.
for, and you can guess who that,
You
that
can go
was.
through all the taxes and everything else.
So,
you can
all right,
see
let's
6
say you want to
against.
check up on Al.
Yeah.
You want to know how Al
Uh-huh.
voted. Look up Al Baldessaro and voting. How do you roll call
Well,
votes? You
roll
have to
call
go to roll
votes. You
call
gotta go to
votes,
roll
right?
call, right.
Because you can go to the person and find out what they sponsored. But if you go to roll call votes, you can look up your rep there. After you found who your legislator is, write down their names. Go to roll call votes. It'll give you the title of what each thing is.
Right.
Also, very important to look at the motion because sometimes no means yes. So an ITL means they to kill the bill. So how
Right.
did they vote?
Or
Did they vote
interim
yes to
right.
kill it or no to kill it?
Or an interim study bill, because when you're in the second year, an interim study bill sometimes means it's a slow death.
Or it doesn't
And
happen.
because some committees, they're too embarrassed to say, we're going to ITL it, so let's interim study it. The study never goes on the second year. Very, very few times does it happen, because you have to file a whole new bill in the new session of new legislators.
If the new legislators
right.
want to pick it up.
So you'll see sometimes we voted against an interim study because we wanted to overturn the ought to pass, to make the bill pass. But since you brought up the 6 Republicans in my district and 1 Democrat, how many do you have in your district?
We have 8
In your
representatives.
Merrimack.
We have 7 Republicans and 1 Democrat. And it's some bills, we kind of vary on if they're the important bills. All the ones that are about tax, like the Medicaid expansion, and those the Republicans vote one way, the Democrat votes another.
Well,
She
a
doesn't vote with
representative
us.
came to me that sits next to our Democrat, and they said, your legislator's a hypocrite. I said, what are you talking about? He said, because he said something to her. He said, she voted for the fetal homicide amendment, but yet was all excited that it failed. And
So
he
why'd she
said,
vote for it?
because he said, the Republicans or conservatives, I guess, been beating her up in town, and she's nervous in the upcoming election. He thinks that's why she voted.
Well,
But he said it was the same. She was there with all her Democrat friends, yay, all the stuff there, that it failed.
well, you know what? This term, I'm not. I don't. I didn't get elected so I can get reelected, and
Right.
I've spoken out on some very contentious issues.
That makes
I
two of
spoke
us.
out against the repeal of the death penalty.
Right.
I could get voted out of office. You know what? So be it. I'll go to the gym every day. I stand up for what I believe in, and I've never been. I'm Italian like you.
That's
I talk
right.
with my hands, and I can't keep quiet.
No, not at all. You know, that repeal of the death penalty, what a disgrace that was. I'm sorry. I'm a pro-life individual, and I believe in,
For innocent life.
yeah,
I
for
believe in
innocent life.
protecting
But I
innocent
believe
life.
if you take life, then you deserve to pay for that life.
It depends
You know?
on the situation. I believe in the death penalty, not for every murderer, no, just
See,
the
this is where
worst
we'll
of the
break
worst.
away.
Just
Be-
the worst
right.
of the worst.
Yeah.
Like the ones that killed Kim Cates. I think they should be on death row.
Right.
The ones that murdered the Xantops,
Mm-hmm.
that home invasion, and Officer Briggs. I brought up all those cases.
Well, when I went to the floor on that, I brought up about the Cates case and everything else, and they got their feelings hurt because when I said press red for the blood that was shed, to make sure that we protect and get rid of this, to keep the death penalty in place, they got their feelings hurt, the Democrats. You remember they booed me on the floor?
Yeah, well,
Because
I
said-
do understand their side, though, because some of my good friends were co-sponsors of that bill, and I do understand where they're coming from, but I
With
don't
the
agree.
DNA and all the technology we have today, there's no reason that somebody will be put to death that is not, that's
And
innocent.
besides that, okay, we haven't had an execution in New Hampshire since 1939.
That's right.
It's like it's not
And we have
overused. We have
one on- that's
one
right.
person on death row, and this repealing the death penalty doesn't apply to him.
Now, what will get me now is if a security guard gets killed now, God forbid, in the prison, okay, all they can do is slap their hand if this here
Right.
goes away.
Right.
Because right now, if a prisoner who's in there for life kills one of our prison guards, it's a death penalty because he killed an officer. But if that death penalty is repealed,
Right.
what's going to happen
Nothing.
to our prison
We'll
guard?
probably
Nothing.
have more.
We'll
more
probably
murders in
sit
prison.
around the prison, sing kumbaya.
Yeah,
Hey,
I
don't
heard
worry
Mo
about it.
saying
Remember?
that.
Yeah, we
I
brought that
can hear
up.
Mo.
You know what I
from
mean? I don't
Bedford.
understand it. Where's the deterrent there to stop and for people to think, wow, if I kill this officer, I'm going to jail. Or if I break into this home, I'm going to jail and kill people in this home.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get life. I'm just going to get life.
Yeah.
I won't be put to death, so no big deal.
Yeah.
Let me take all the life I want.
And one thing I don't understand is why are there clergy up in the gallery to see the results of the death penalty repeal, but there weren't any up there for fetal homicide that I saw.
I know, it's a
Not
shame,
that I
ain't it?
saw.
I think there's a lot of hypocrites out there. And I'm a Catholic. You know what I mean? I'm a proud Catholic. I can't make it every Sunday, but I'm a Catholic.
I'm an
But-
Orthodox Catholic, but I can't call
Yeah.
myself a good Catholic because I going through the legislative email, I keep seeing all these legislators that vote for
Right.
abortion that calling themselves good Catholics. I'm
Right,
like, well,
yeah.
then I guess I'm not. I'm a bad Catholic.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's
I
a shame.
try. I
Yeah.
try to do it right.
Well, we all do, but
All right,
some
we have 4
we're not
minutes.
perfect there. But
Yeah.
let's get into some
And-
other stuff
well,
that affect
okay.
the pocketbooks of our taxpayers.
Okay, well, we need to have something uplifting, and then we'll go into education, or unless
Okay.
we want to end on a good note. So we'll go to education.
Oh, yeah.
We had all those education bills, and we were not able
Wow.
to stop it because the socialists are running the show, and we couldn't stop the Common Core.
I just don't understand it. New York, what was the comment that in New York made, the legislators there?
Oh,
There was
that.
something you would tell.
Yeah, that was me. I posted that. I got it from John McManus, a friend of mine. He said, if in New York, one of the most liberal states in the country, has declared that Common Core is a disaster, liberal New York, where can it succeed?
And New Hampshire is the 10th on the list of the whole country of the best education. Massachusetts was number
It
one.
was. It's not going to be anymore.
Right, it's not going to be anymore because Common Core, in my opinion, dumbs down children.
It does.
kind
They
of
want to
mind
bring
control.
everybody down
Right.
to the same level.
It
So
gets-
if we're all on the same level, then that includes places where I've heard education isn't so good, like inner cities. So we're going to bring New Hampshire kids down
That's
to the
right.
level of the inner city kids.
It
And
makes no. I'm surprised parents
Can't
aren't
we
kicking
help
in
them up?
doors and saying, "Not my child."
because they're not. It's hard. It's hard to get all the right information because all they're hearing is one side. Like our school board, they're only hearing one side.
Did-
They wouldn't even let us speak at a
You
hearing.
know what made me laugh and but made sense? President Obama's kids.
Oh,
that
yeah,
are in the
Sidwell, that
private
was my question,
that
the
went into
Sidwell
a
Friends.
whatever school they're in, they don't.
That's what's
they
called
don't
Sidwell
have
Friends.
Common Core.
They're not getting Common Core,
Right?
no.
No, but it's good for our public schools.
Yeah.
You know, in our charter school, they're for Common Core, but it's not good for them. You know, Obama
Well,
kids
some of the
or
teachers
other
are revolting.
representatives are rich with deep pockets.
So in liberal California, the teachers are revolting. They're not happy with this Common Core. I heard that they're starting to complain in Massachusetts and also Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm like, come on, Merrimack, come on, Merrimack.
Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to look into the camera and ask the parents there, if you care about your child's education, I would look into the Common Core curriculum. You're going to be shocked at what goes on. Under the math, under certain programs that cut out, under the history, under social studies and other areas there, especially where we're going to brainwash from kindergarten on up. You're going to take a look at a lot of the books that are pulled out of the curriculum, and there's certain, I guess, subjects that are brought in, like authors that are not well-known authors or historical authors. These books are being taken away. So where does that mean happens to our country years to come as we brainwash from, like other socialist countries, we brainwash them as kindergarten students all the way up.
I am a robot.
Right.
I am a good
I
worker.
will follow, you know, the government, and the government has the answers versus independent thinkers, leaders. You know, how to think out of the box, that's what we should be teaching. We need to go back to the basics.
And I think we have a lot of good teachers, and
without a doubt.
I'm hoping that they'll see that this isn't working. Because I think, don't you think, at least I like to believe, that teachers want their kids to learn. They don't want them struggling and crying over this stupid math when they can do the problem in 5 minutes, 5 seconds.
You know, many people move to our town here because of the schools. If we would just let the teachers in the trenches go wild and teach the way they are with all, but they have all these restrictions that are going on. I mean, we have a good superintendent here, Nate Greenberg, but the thing is they're taking their mandates, their orders from the state, from the federal government. We need to push the federal government out. We need to get back to local control. We need parents back involved in the kids in school. I mean, we're pretty good here because the parents show up here. You go to a school function, it's packed. There's, you know,
Well, we're running out of
Are we
time, but
running?
you know,
Wow, it's
when we
going
had that
fast.
hearing on the Common Core bills, the room was packed with concerned parents. There were no parents there wanting Common Core, only parents there saying, please don't do
and
this.
the commissioner disrespected the parent. We had parents from Londonderry
Yes.
were there, and the assessment test, because that was supposing we put in for a waiver. And she said, oh, no waivers are going out. So what good is saying we put in for a waiver?
And the one good thing that
This went
happened
fast,
yeah, it
you know,
did.
too
Okay,
fast,
well,
yeah.
the tanning bill, we killed that, and the one good thing, my bird bill, because I know I love animals, I love little birds, and we had passed a bill on consent last year with unintended consequences that you cannot sell a bird in New Hampshire without a bill of health. So that means no more buying birds, because a canary is what, $40 maybe, and
Right,
a
and
bill
the
of health is 100. So there goes that industry. No more
You did a
selling
great
birds.
job on that bill there, because it's
Thank
little stuff like that, nickel dime people.
So it passed in the House and unanimously, and it passed on consent, unanimously in committee. On consent in the House, it passed unanimously in the committee hearing in the Senate yesterday, and it'll
Well,
go to
there
the
was a
full
lot
Senate.
more stuff we could have talked
I
about
know.
today, and we'll have to
Chat
get
later.
the show back together again next week and talk about more of legislative update there for sure. And how do people get in touch with you again?
Oh, just go to the state website, and you look for your legislator. You go to
Jeanine,
the
it's always an honor, and I'm Al Baldessau, and I'm an easy guy to get in touch with, and have a website, www.albaldessau.com. You can see my Twitters, everything out there, even my voting record. And thank you for once again and watching Who's Looking Out for You.
See you next time.